Hey, it's Jay. Have you ever once met a private investigator in real life? It seems like a cool job, an exciting career, with excellent opportunities to get punched in the stomach by some hood, but it feels like one of those jobs that only exists in fiction. No way could someone actually sustain themselves on whatever this job is. There aren't a ton of murders that need to be solved by a no-nonsense shady gumshoe in real life. And yet, for some reason, Jessica Fletcher keeps on running into them. We had just talked about Harry McGraw, the hard-nosed PI with his old-timey idioms and moral complexity, who was the show's go-to when they needed that kind of character. Unfortunately, Jerry Orbach got a lead role, so they needed a new character to fill the space, and all they could afford was Trapper John from MASH. What do you mean you don't remember which character that is? He was clearly the most popular character from MASH, that's why he got that 7-season spin-off, Trapper John MD. Of course, this was after Wayne Rogers didn't return after season 3, which is why you likely don't remember Trapper John at all. Wayne isn't a super prolific actor, his time as Charlie Garrett is late in his career, and he seems to hold no specific fondness for the role. Any mention of Mercer wrote absent from his official biography. So his ghost won't feel bad when I say I am not fond of Charlie Garrett. He did not grow on me. He's really bad at being a detective, actually. The number of times this guy bungles a job for no reason, just kind of a moron. Jessica is always 3 steps in front of this guy in all of their adventures. She just keeps running into him, and she knows he's too much of a goober to be a murderer, so she ends up defending his honor a lot. He only appears a reasonable number of times, 5 times, which gives us some room to really talk about these episodes and the bizarre little quirks that occur in the New York seasons. We've discussed the strained working conditions of seasons 6 and 7 before, when we discussed Jessica Fletcher Presents To Catch a Thief, starring Dennis Stanton and Rhoda. And then Angela Lansbury was all in again, and they made some changes to make the show more modern, to keep up with the times. And the times at the time happened to be the 90s. Everything was getting way grittier. Music, comic books, television, and also specifically Murder, She Wrote. No longer was Jessica living in the small, statistically unlikely town of Cabot Cove, Maine. She's got an apartment in New York City. Okay, actually it's both. We still get more Cabot Cove episodes, but now Jessica is also a New Yorker, and she is teaching classes at Empire State University until she gets bored of that and buys a department store that she turns into a museum. I think it doesn't come up super often. The murders are getting more gruesome, the motivations increasingly nuanced, and we get a lot more young, non-white people in the show. She travels to more exotic international locations, and sometimes interacts with the locals. We spend more time with the NYPD, as she's made several friends in the homicide department. There are less wacky things happening, unless it is something super wacky, like when she considers whether the psycho house is evil.
Now, if you do a good enough job really convincing people it's evil, does it become evil?
I suppose it would depend on what it is.
That, the psycho house.
We get the addition of some memorable recurring characters like Deputy Andy Broom and Lieutenant Artie Gelber. Angela Lansbury's got to ride off several trips to Ireland, and things got a little nepotistic behind the scenes, letting people really pitch their pet projects, such as when yes, I will never get tired of this joke. I know a fair amount about JFK conspiracies through osmosis and YouTube video essays, but I clearly know a lot less than Tom Sawyer, the producer responsible for all the Charlie Garrett episodes. He was in the writer's room from the start, and was also a producer on The Law and Harry McGraw, so Garrett is clearly his guy. And while I dislike the character, the mystery building in these episodes are pretty good actually, if a bit rapid fire and freewheeling. They aren't badly written episodes, they just hinge upon a single moron bumbling his way through the case. Like in this first appearance of Charlie Garrett, where the discovery of a body of a private detective who disappeared 30 years ago under mysterious circumstances leads to several people descending on Coral City, Florida, where Jessica is attending a writer's conference. Somebody is going into people's hotel rooms and tossing them, and Jessica can't wait to get involved. She decides to help this woman figure out what happened to her dad, the private detective who died. This leads to them meeting Charlie, who's in town because the dead PI owes him $3,000, and he's been hanging on to this IOU for 30 years. Surprisingly, the police chief doesn't immediately give him the money that was found on the body, because come on. The three get together at the diner where you're not over your ex, a location famously in California, and the woman, Laura, shows them some photos that her father sent to her grandma, which is mostly a bunch of guys standing around with guns. But Jessica recognizes a couple of the men in the pictures, a mobster named Santo Angelini and Lee Harvey Oswald. Dun dun dun. So she immediately calls the FBI, and because this is Jessica calling, they send a man out to talk her down from the investigation before she goes rogue. Of course they have a file on her, the Kremlin does too. But he might as well get a look at those photos. Oh no, the hotel tosser strikes again. Turns out Angelini sent a man in a cowboy hat to steal them, and someone just shot him. Well, now that there's a dead body, Jessica's got a lot of yelling to do. She's going to yell at the mafia guy. She's going to yell at this journalist who's just around. He's working on a book about the JFK assassination, and Jessica accuses him of agreeing too closely with the Warren Commission. She is not over the Kennedy assassination, apparently, and she thinks it was probably a mob hit, and she's gonna get those negatives. Oh, right. Even though the photos were destroyed, Charlie sent her the negatives in the mail as a security precaution. Smart move. Except they talk about how they definitely still have them in a bugged room, so the mob has kidnapped Laura and demands a hostage exchange. This is a very delicate situation. She better do exactly what they say.
The negatives, please.
I don't have them.
So that could have gone worse. I'm glad nobody died, but this seems like a really bad plan. Especially since they did bring the negatives in Charlie's pocket, and he needed to be a hero, and they flew out of his pocket and got lost in the ocean. Well, I guess that's over, because Jess figured out it was Laura who killed the cowboy hat man, and Angelini died off-screen in a car crash. Time to bail on the whole solving the JFK assassination thing. That way only leads to more blood. This felt like a real gimmicky episode because there was no reason this needed to be about the Kennedy assassination, besides a chance to hear who Tom Sawyer thought killed JFK, and the mob is a boring answer. Make it more outlandish, that's what the real Tom Sawyer would do. There's a break-in at some kind of boat factory in Cabot Cove, where the thief gets a lot of money before escaping from action hero Andy Broom. Calm the hell down, Andy. I know it's a dangerous town, but most of the murders are shenanigans related. Don't need to go in guns blazing. Anyway, the owner, Lomax, plays off the theft. He lies that the kid only took $300, by which he means he can't tell the police about the money because it's mob money, so he's going to call Garrett in to lean on the kid. Meanwhile, Jess and Sheriff Metzger are secretly planning a surprise party for Seth, because the cranky grump is too grouchy to accept a normal birthday party, so they have to go around his back with it, even though he figures out they are planning one almost immediately. Seth gets into a car wreck with Charlie, which just gives him one more thing to complain about, and so the gang can meet Charlie and talk about how much of a dirtbag he is. Jess is defending him for some reason, even after he goes missing after a body is found in the records office. You see, the money ended up in a file cabinet because the young idiot thief's girlfriend works there, and he hid it because I guess he didn't think anyone would look in there. Because he's an idiot. He's being tailed by both Charlie and the mob enforcer who is in town, so they all break into the office late at night, which doesn't end well for either Charlie, who gets knocked out, or the enforcer, who gets murdered. Young idiot decides that it is time to skip town. He just needs to get the money, which he doesn't have anymore, and goes to rob Lomax, who is getting yelled at by the mob guy. And this entire thing is broken up by Sheriff Metzger, who arrests the thief. He's awfully sorry, and offers to go into witness protection and testify what he knows, which is not much. Don't know how this would help. Jess and Charlie ascertain that none of the parties have the money, so who does? Jessica figures out when Charlie cuts an apple, because that's how her powers work. Something innocuous happens and she makes the eureka face. She just remembered that she saw the same paper cutter at 2 different locations. Therefore, it was the girlfriend's brother who took the money, and they set up a sting to get the money back and a confession. Charlie asks to inform Sheriff Metzger of the plan, so that he can not tell Metzger and run off with the money. Jessica spends too much time trying to convince him that's a bad idea, before revealing she didn't trust Charlie and told Metzger about the plan anyway. Then smash cut to Seth's birthday party, where he got 2 of the same painting. I guess this is funny. This episode is alright. I always find it funny when Jessica's friends come to Cabot Cove and get yelled at by Sheriff Metzger. If only Michael Haggerty had occasion to come to Cabot Cove, he could use a good yelling at. He'd probably still be super smug about it. Jessica knows a lady who owns a resort in Martinique, and she's going to take advantage of that relationship for a cheap vacation. She didn't even bring her laptop. Yeah, that's right. Later seasons Jessica Fletcher has a laptop. I bet you still thought she was doing all her work on typewriter. Get with the program. It's the 90s. Unfortunately, she is traveling literally anywhere, so the resort is in trouble because of gambling issues, and also Charlie Garrett is there, which is never a good sign. Charlie Garrett has been sent by some businessman to track down his wife, who skipped town with some guy after emptying out the business bank account to the tune of $6 million. Charlie finds her and falls in love with her after discovering that she's being held against her will, so Jess distracts this guy while Charlie escapes with her and the money on a boat. And while they are bumbling through their escape, she gets shot by a sniper and dies. Don't be too sad, Charlie. She wasn't attracted to you anyway.
Listen, I think I know what you're thinking, and I don't want to lead you on or anything, but I just don't know if it could work out with us. I mean, it might and might not.
Charlie hid the money, because of course he was considering just taking it, but it got stolen out from under him again, this time by a professional assassin who gets her cover blown by some dork who has a crush on her. Also because Jessica memorizes the sandal imprints of every shoe she sees. But she insists she didn't shoot the lady. It was clearly a resort owner trying to take care of his gambling debts. I think this was the episode when I was over Charlie. He is completely useless in this one, only there to get his shit kicked in by thugs a couple of times, and to be sad when he definitely gets a woman killed. But at least Jessica finally gets some vacation time. She's getting a scuba lesson. This episode is a weird one, as it starts with some random guy getting knocked out and dragged away in an alley, and then we spend the whole episode not knowing what that was about, because we transition to a car flying off a cliff. So that's wild. This car crash was the husband of a friend of Jess's, and the sheriff Kurt Fuller has been hounding her for a month on suspicion that she is somehow responsible for the death. The life insurance company is also suspicious, and they send Charlie Garrett to go ask a bunch of questions. They helpfully also provide him with a cover identity, some stockbroker from Arizona. That should make it easy.
That winter in the area.
Charlie? Charlie Garrett! Charlie, what are you doing
I think you must be mistaken.
Okay, so the operation is already skiffed, but Charlie's determined to go forward with the mission, asking Jessica to please stop blowing his cover, and her agreeing and then deciding it's too embarrassing. He hangs on this cover identity way too long, even after he is once again knocked out unconscious at a murder scene. A witness has come forward claiming that Jess's friend was definitely buying the materials to explode the car, and she has been arrested. The witness's story has been picked up by a rock star journalist, Darman.
Darman is an intellectually impoverished hack who hasn't had an original idea in 10 years.
I absolutely agree. This guy sucks.
A whole new spin on the rap scene. Rap music as a metaphor for the decline of Western civilization.
And he's cheating on his girlfriend, Jess's friend's daughter, with this lady, the wife of the witness, and maybe the lady from the beginning. Are these the same lady? The dramatic music when she appears implies it's the same lady? What a tangle web to sort through when the witness gets shot and dies. As you probably guessed, there's a major plot afoot, and Charlie is once again completely useless, having been identified by the actual mastermind almost immediately, this shady-looking guy who keeps creeping on everyone in the background. This is the man who supposedly died in the car crash. He was faking his own death and hired these two to help frame his wife for his murder, and had to get rid of the fake witness because he was getting too antsy. And he would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for that meddlesome mystery writer. And Charlie was also there. This is the last Charlie Garrett appearance, and probably his worst showing. He is such a dipshit in this episode. This episode revolves around a stolen Degas, which has been painted over by some impressionist dirtbag artist for easy transport, but the painting vanishes when the guy who commissioned it suddenly has a heart attack as he's being shaken down by some thugs. It resurfaces suddenly in an auction, and it turns out a lot of people know this stupid little painting is actually a valuable Degas. The artist knows, and he tells this collector who always carries a ridiculously tiny dog with him. The thugs know about it, and this auction employee realizes and told her boyfriend, who hired Garrett to bid on it for plausibility reasons. Jessica's also there bidding on an Arthur Conan Doyle manuscript for her museum. Remember, she runs a museum? The show does sometimes too. So we get a really tense scene of the painting going up for auction, with the camera zooming around the room at all the concerned parties, and it goes exactly like you'd expect. The bidding picks up quickly, people are surprised. Charlie tries to intimidate the competition by jumping to his limit of $100,000, and then when he gets outbid, he is suddenly overwhelmed with the need to make plans with Jessica across the room, so he starts making motions with his hands. Which the auctioneer, primed to look to Charlie for the next bid, interprets as Charlie bidding $400,000, and he's not paying attention, so the hammer falls, and Charlie just bought a haunted painting he can't afford.
How could I have been so dumb?
Well, at least he knows he's stupid. This turn of events leads to Charlie getting punched in the stomach, as is customary, and Charlie getting once again wanted for questioning for being in the vicinity of a murder when the artist gets stabbed and the painting is stolen. This Unger guy hates Charlie's guts, and it's great.
And like, how the hell a lady like Jessica Fletcher ever got involved with you? All right, let's go.
Jess continues investigating with the help of her young black friend and her boyfriend. There are 3 black people in this episode. They are really trying to keep up with the demographics in the final season. She learns enough information to be dangerous when the thugs are back with a gun. They will show these guys where the painting is. Jessica makes a scene and pretends there's a fly in her soup, even doing a little stomp on the puddle to really sell it, and luckily the police were on their way to meet her anyway. The FBI finally got in contact to let everyone know that they were the one who put the painting up for auction, in hope of smoking out everyone who knew it was a Degas, which, considering how easy it was for several unrelated people to figure this out, makes the initial plan seem like a stupid idea, actually. Maybe just painting some shitty postmodernist garbage on top of a stolen painting with a very rare frame was a dumb thing to do. So they are talking it all over while Unger checks Charlie's alibi, and turns out he was very memorable because he sat for 6 hours in her diner on a single cup of coffee and didn't tip. What a heel. But it's just the right thing to make Jessica realize who actually done it. Charlie wants in on this too, but she just can't trust him, and really, fair. He's tried to bail with the money twice already. Of course he's not going to tell him where the painting is. Unfortunately, he figured it out and catches Jess snooping at the auction house, having brokered a deal with the murderer for half the money. It was the auctioneer, having realized the value of the painting after the auction and tried to keep it for himself, killing the artist when they both tried to steal the painting from the vault at the same time. Also, it was actually a sting the whole time. Charlie was in on the plan. Gotta make it look good. Then we get a happy stinger when Jessica finally realized the Arthur Conan Doyle she had been sure was a fake was obviously a fake, because Ellis Island closed in 1924, and the manuscript is from 1926. Haha, good thing she stopped to check. Otherwise, she would have wasted $35,000. I guess there was no Wikipedia, but this seems like an easy catch. Murder, She Wrote was canceled in 1996, having been moved to Thursday for its final season, leading to a ratings tumble when it couldn't compete with Friends. CBS did commission 4 Murder, She Wrote movies, but Charlie Garrett wasn't in any of them, and Wayne Rogers was pretty much done with acting at this point, getting a minor role in Ghost of Mississippi before vanishing into bit parts. And yeah, my opinion on Charlie hasn't really changed. He is much more of a nervous Nelly than Harry McGraw, and seems much less capable. When Harry McGraw holds a gun on you, you take notice, and I never feel threatened by Charlie Garrett. I've seen him go down to the slightest bonkus to the head too many times. And buddy, the auction blunder was 100% your fault. You're not cut out for this. I'm glad he got out of this business. Alright, that's enough Murder, She Wrote for now. I gotta start working on a longer one, so that will be a while. Until then, let's end the year with some Christmas content. Christmas is a thing, and it's time to make it a very specific thing. I'll be watching some Christmas specials starring comic strip characters, but not that one, the bad ones. See you.